Welcome, everyone, to the first ever episode of the Change the World podcast. Over the past couple years, I've been interviewed on several podcasts, always sharing my story, and I've got to meet some amazing people that are doing some great things in the industry and also being able to give back, whether it's through knowledge, philanthropy, whatever it is, and leave a legacy both in the industry and in the world. So I'm super excited to kick it off. One of the biggest things for me was I kept pushing this off and saying like I never have time for it or anything else. I decided to finally take the leap, and I'm super excited for my first episode to have one of my closest friends and business partners, Antonio Marin, that recently actually came full-time with us and has been helping me run operations and scale for the real estate business so we can really take off and take this to the next level. So Antonio, thank you so much for being here.
I appreciate it.
So I really wanted to start off. Antonio and I have known each other for about 10 years now. We met way back in middle school. We weren't that close back then. We just knew of each other. But at a funny coincidence, we ended up going to the same college, went to a class that we ended up getting booted from and kicked out of because we didn't have the right prerequisites. But it was that one day that we went to class, everything lined up perfectly. And then the rest is history. So before we actually reconnected, what was Antonio doing and how was that whole transition into real estate 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah, so at the time I was in San Diego State. I was a little confused on what to do because, college is very open-ended on that end. So I was just like, oh, should I pursue real estate? Should I continue and take a corporate job? I was really confused. It was my senior year, right? It was senior year?
Yeah.
And yeah, I came across you in class, and I remember you were speaking to the teacher in regards to that you're part of like this whole ADU company and stuff like that. I'm like, dang, like this guy knows what he's doing. So I believe the class was around 3 hours. So we had a 15-minute break. I went up to you and I was like, hey man, like, what are you doing? Like, how you been? And you're like, hey, if you want to work with me, you want to learn everything, come on down. Like, I'll teach you everything I know. And from there, I was like, yeah, I really want to dive myself into real estate. I know I wanted to do it like around 18 years old, but I never pursued it. And then, yeah, when I met you, it was all hands on deck, and it's been fun ever since.
Awesome. And just for the listeners and people that are thinking of, have been thinking about an industry, maybe thinking about a new career change or taking that first step, there's a couple things that you did that I commend you for. One, like we hadn't seen each other in like 10 years and you like went after me like in that 15-minute break and took your opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. And I was listening to something yesterday where it was like, hey, you put it out into the universe and the universe gives you opportunities, but a lot of times people just don't see it, or they see it, but they're too scared to take action on it. That's one. And then number two, when you did come and work for me, it was all about learning, right? Like I didn't pay you at the beginning, there was a lot of it was commission only. So what was those two things? Where did you find the courage? And maybe it's something from your childhood that says, hey, like just take that step. What's the worst that can happen, right? What is that for you?
So yeah, realistically, in that point of time, I was stuck at a dead-end job. I was an ice cream man. I don't know if you remember, but I was serving Dippin' Dots at an arena. So when there's concerts and stuff like that, just serving ice cream.
Tickets all the time.
Free tickets all the time. Got to see some cool concerts too. And if anything, at that time, I had two jobs, not only the ice cream, but I was a customer service rep, and I was the only one that was part-time. And because it was around COVID, or I think it was the aftermath of COVID, they were having a hard time and they had to lay me off. So I was like, dang, I'm just stuck with ice cream at this point. And it was like, okay, let's do it. I mean, there's no risk. I mean, I'm gonna go all in, might as well dive deep into this, burn the boats. And yeah, I remember the first time, it was like around September, we went to go do, I think it was a site scan. You're telling me like, this is what a setback is. I'm like, oh my God, what is so much terminology. And I just remember I was writing everything down, and that's how realistically I started picking stuff up, just asking you and asking you and asking you. We also had friends and colleagues also in the industry, so it was just asking everyone, seeing how it was. And yeah, it was fun. I wouldn't say it was scary just because it was something so new, and it was just like I always wanted to go. I always wanted to learn more. It was a very fun moment.
Yeah, man. And then on top of that, another thing that I've had several people that have worked for me that are now doing their own things and really started running, whether they were interns at first or assistants or whatever it was, just to learn the ropes and then run. And you were one of them. Um, Now, one thing that I really liked about you is you were okay with not knowing everything, but every single meeting, you never like missed your notebook. You always had something to write down. And every single meeting, as soon as we left, like on our way back to the car or while we're driving back to the office, or you'd even call me after and like, hey, I took notes about cap rates. Can you walk me through that? Hey, I took notes about ARV. Can you walk me through that? Hey, I took notes about, setbacks or zoning. Can you walk me through that? And you were never afraid to ask. Like in the moment, you would seem so confident. Like I could never guess that you didn't know what you were talking about. But then immediately after, like you were okay with asking. And I think some of the newer agents on the team right now, it's like a new process for them to be okay with not knowing everything. And that's something that I had to learn as well. Being so young, I actually use it as an advantage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because some of these older people in the industry, like they want to mentor, they want to teach, and when they have somebody who's eager to learn, it makes such a big difference, especially for everybody who's like in their early 20s. Like you're not expected to know anything. I remember my dad told me that when he first started working, obviously he had his degree and he was so excited, and he's an engineer, right? And he came in and his boss told him the only thing you know is that you don't know anything, right? So that's always like a constant, right? So after you started, right, you learned the process, you went several months. Obviously the income's not coming in the first couple months. I know when we left there and started our own real estate team, the first couple months were tough, right? We thought we knew what we were doing. We were super busy, but there was no income coming in. So how did you stay focused? How did you stay like driven through those like nights where you were like, I don't know if I'm going to pay rent, I don't know if there's going to be money for the date I'm taking this girl on this weekend, like, but you still had that vision. Talk me through your mindset through those tough times.
Yeah, so we switched over to real estate full time. I believe it was August of 2023. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yeah.
So when we went full in, it was you, Oscar, and myself,
And TJ.
and TJ as well. And yeah, it was just so new, but because we had so much knowledge in regards to at least ADU space and development, I felt like we had somewhat of an edge. So we ran into it full force, and we already had processes from our previous job that helped us out a lot, this new venture. So as we were taking on just everything, we were trying to practically see what worked. We would try everything. We did Facebook leads, we would call, we would door knock, talk to anyone. And it was just from August to December, it was a really tough time because I think interest rates were too high. No one was buying, no one was selling. And we tried everything. And then I remember our first listing, we signed, and it was like, oh my God, thank God we have something coming in finally. And it just turned it out to be a horrible process. The client was just not working with us. And at the end of it, because once again, we were so new, I believe it was a contract that we forgot a date on, and it nullified the whole thing. So she ended up going with another agent, and she ended up selling the house. So I believe this is around December. We were down to our last $100. Like, dang, this is it. Like, this is our last month. We're going to have to see if we can squeeze anything. We ended up thankfully selling a mobile home up in Hemet, which was our only deal of the year. But yeah, as Christmas comes, commission was gone. So immediately we had to, new year, we had to really think like, well, how are we going to proceed? What are we going to do? And I had the hard decision of, do I stay in real estate? I have no more money. I have a car payment coming up. And unfortunately, like, as times were tough, I had to make the decision, and I had to move to a full-time job, which was construction.
So 2024, you took a step back, went back to a job, and then you still did real estate part-time, which at the end of the day, you did pretty good. I think your numbers are a little over $2 million in sales, just doing part-time, like working from 5, to 7 p.m. Every once in a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then later in that year, you came to another revelation while you were working your part-time job. I never like went to another job, right? I said,
Mm-hmm.
screw it. I'm going to figure out how to make this work. But you came back and first of all, why did you come back to the real estate space? And what was that revelation that now, just a few months ago, you said, hey, I'm going all in again, and we're going to give it a second shot and let's see what happens.
So it was very interesting. As soon as I got into construction, I remember, once again, Oscar was the one that got me into the job. Shout out to Oscar. As soon as I walked in, I'm like, oh gosh, like I've never been in construction. I'm not used to waking up at 4 a.m, driving up 30 minutes, getting out at 2:30. The thing that sold me on the job more than anything was the fact that I was able to be free from 2:30 to 5. And I was like, that's perfect for real estate because I mean, I can make calls, I can still work, right? I still have half of the day set to being able to work in real estate. That's the ideal. The ideal didn't happen. I realized, I think 3-4 months into it, I'm like, I can't handle this. Like, I can't juggle both. It's not attainable because I was showing up home tired. My back would hurt. I was hungry. I was always sleeping. I was always napping. Construction's hard work. So the times I would go into the office, it was like, I really didn't have anything set in stone either. So I would make a couple calls. Nothing would really hear. There's no consistency. So we were trying to see if it could work out with construction as doing real estate. I remember around August or September, it was around my birthday. I just had this revelation. I think I woke up once again at 4:50, had my alarm, brushed my teeth, got in my car, started driving up, and as soon as I parked my car into the shop, I was like, I can't do this no more. Like I this can't be my life for the rest of my 6, 7, whatever it is. This can't be my career anymore. I can't. I'm like, I need to find another way. And every time I would go, same thing, routine after routine, go through the work day, and it was just like, I can't be here. Like I have to do something. This is not me. I have a degree and I know all this knowledge on real estate. What am I doing here, right? And it's like, I don't knock anyone who does construction. I mean, it's a very earnest job. It's hard, and people who do it, my respects. It's just, I knew I had something different set out for me. So it was around October. I'm like, by this point, I don't think I've ever been depressed in my life, but this is damn near the closest I've ever been to it for sure. Where I was like, oh my gosh, like my life is just routine. A whole year has passed and every day feels like the same. The only freedom I have is on the weekends from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then we go back into it.
And knowing, and we were friends too, even Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I could tell you were beat, right? Like we'd go out and you were like, dude, by 9 p.m. you're like, I just want to like relax. Yeah. Like I want to have my feet up and watch TV. And like as a friend outside of business, I noticed like certain things changed as far as like you said, like the happiness, the enthusiasm, the energy. You're a very energetic type of guy. Like we bounce ideas off each other all the time, and you were like just down. And I was like, look, at the end of the day, you know, if you want to try real estate again, like we're here, but and at that point it had started working for me, right? It took me like 6 to 8 months. So I was showing you some of the results of like, hey, it does work, right? It took some time and it's scary financially, but it does work. And since you left a few months ago, or I'll let you tell that part. So what was that final turning point?
So if anything, I know it was frustrating on both parts because, I mean, you were still running a team and you had agents in and out. No one was really committing to you in any way. And I know that could be very frustrating. I was one of those agents. It was like, oh, half in, half out, you know what? Like, we're going to see how we make it work. But I mean, construction it took up so much of my time. I had the worst eye bags. I was always wearing dirty clothes. And it was just like, I was so out of it. And that's not typically who I am. Like, if I do something, I want to do it 100%. And this was just a straight 50-50. If anything, I wasn't even trying that hard in construction. And when it came to real estate, it was just so hard, right? So I think it was in October, right after my birthday. I'm like, I can't, no, I need to figure something out. I started talking to you and you're like, you know what, dude, like to replace your income right now, because I had fear. My biggest fear was going back to those $100 in January and freaking out. And you're like, oh, by this time, you told me like, dude, I think I'm working at a place. You practically have to just set calls for a real estate course. It pays good money, and if anything, it gives you the free time to be able to pursue real estate. So I contacted them, and I did an interview with them. They ended up telling me,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, the whole real estate skills, and I had it set. They were like, you know what? Yeah, we're gonna train you. We're gonna do this 90-month period. You're in, but we need to still train you. And I think that same day, I had a mock call, and they're like, you know what? Like, we can work on you, but you're in. And something just didn't sit right.
It was too easy.
Not necessarily too easy, but it's just like, why am I not content? Like, this is a step forward. This is something good for me.
Right.
And I just sat on it, and I was like, what's going on? Why is this not clicking?
So just to recap, there was an opportunity where you could leave your current construction job, make about the same, but you still have some time tied up in that other job. My thought process when I brought that opportunity to you was, at least you'll have more energy, right? Not have to wake up as early, not have to do a physically tiring job, but still have some sort of safety belt. But you said, F that.
Yeah, I remember I went to the gym, and I just kept on thinking about it. I'm like, no, dude, like, I'm going back to another job. This is the rat race. This is what I read about. Like, why am I not content? And it finally clicked. I'm like, no. I have to finally start working for myself. This is not going to cut it, right? This ain't going to cut it. So I immediately called you, I remember. And I was like, Miguel, dude, I've been thinking, bro. Like, I know you're doing this in regards to real estate and investors. And it's like, I appreciate the opportunity that you set up for me. But, like, just hear me out. Like, I'm willing to go full time with you, and we're gonna make this happen. Like, just give me a shot. I know, like, this whole year it's been hard. I know that things haven't been clicking, but I finally feel like I reached the time that I'm ready to jump again. And you're like, yeah, but I've been going, like, the team hasn't been there, like, I'm ready to set sail, and if you want to jump along, you're gonna have to follow through, but I can't wait for anybody no more. And I was just like, you know what?
That was a tough conversation, man, because, like, for me, I've always been like, okay, helping people out, but I've noticed I've helped to the point where it hurts the person, right? It, like, literally doing everything for them. It happened with one of our agents recently. Like, there was a really tough transaction, and I just stepped in and did everything, right? And I think I'm helping, but it's really hurting, right? And that's where I said, you know what, like, I'm going to set sail. Whoever wants to come along, but it's not going to be easy. And I used to sell the dream of real estate to everybody that would join. Like, you can do so much, you have the freedom, you have this and that. And I would never show the behind the scenes, the curtain, like, behind the curtain, all the tough stuff, the negative numbers in the bank account, the rents coming due, the things not working out, contracts falling through, lawsuits, all this stuff. I would never show all of that because I wanted people. And then I took a switch, right, about 4 or 5 months ago. And then I started telling people, like, as hard as it's going to be. And if they can be okay with that, then they can join the team, right? Hey, you're probably going to go 6 months without a single paycheck, right? You're probably going to have clients that are going to get you all the way to the finish line, and then they're going to drop out, right? You're probably going to have contracts that go in. You're probably going to have stressful nights where you are dealing with millions and millions of dollars at our age, right? And there's all these consequences if things don't go the right way. Like, it's not easy, right? And that's the conversation I had with you. It was like, this is not going to be easy. Think about it before you actually tell me that you're going to commit. Because if you tell me you're going to commit, I'm not going to be easy on you, right? And that's how it's been, right? And that's how it's been the past couple months. And I think, and now I'm starting to see that's a better way to run this operation is like, all right, we are in the trenches, right? We're soldiers and we're going through it together.
Quite literally.
And there's going to be ups, but there's going to be more downs than ups, right? But so yeah, so then you took the leap. This was 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and how has it been since?
So I practically put in I didn't even put 2 weeks. I did a whole month in advance in my construction job. And I was like, okay, I'm going to leave. Like, I'm going to go pursue real estate. And they're like, okay. And I kept on telling you, I remember in December, it was just like, oh, January 3rd, I'm out, right? So I can go back into real estate. And you're like, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? I'm like, just give me a second, dude. I'm still on the fence here. You're like, dude, I know, but, like, you got to at least start learning now so you're not lost in January. I'm like, oh, like, dude, I can't just fully commit right now. I'm in construction still. Like, I still have the commitment completely here, and I can't commit completely to you. You're like, And I could still hear it in your voice. I could still hear like, oh, dude,
Here we
again,
go again.
here we go again, man. Like you say you want to join, but you're not going full in, whatever, right? January 3rd came in, and I remember I was supposed to go on a trip to Mexico, and you were going on a cruise, and then
Yep.
my trip didn't go through, and we met up.
It was your last day.
Yeah.
I was like, let's take you to dinner to celebrate that you quit your job.
Went to
That you're
Pizos.
unemployed.
Shout out to Pizos.
Shout out Pizos.
Yeah, we had showed up late to the dinner. I remember that. And then you're like, "What's up, man? Like, you ready?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm ready." I was so overwhelmed. Everything changed. It was like I was so reactive at the time, just showing up to work. I had my to-do list in front of me and I would just act. And I remember that conversation. She's like, "You ready, man? Like, are you ready?" And I was just like, "Yeah, but I don't know what to do, you know? Like, I'm ready, but what's gonna happen, right?" And then we had the lunch or the dinner, and then you're like, "Let's go to Cigar Lounge. We'll talk more in regards." Like, you were so excited. I was excited but nervous. And we get there, we sit down, and you're like, "Hey, we're building a team. I want you to be my right hand man. Like, but I expect certain things, you know, like you have to be proactive. I know like you took a step back from construction and stuff like that, but like you need to push these people because we have people counting on us now." And it was just like that whole time I was sitting there, I'm like, how am I gonna make this happen? I don't know. I'm not proactive anymore. And you're like, "Yeah, I'm leaving on a cruise
Tomorrow
tomorrow,
morning.
but like you got this, man. Like if you're not gonna work, man, I'd love to see you show up to the office and bring everyone together." At the time, we had what, 2-3 people on
Yeah.
board.
Well, yeah, so there was 4 of us total.
Four of
It was
us
us 2 and 2 more. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, "Yeah, dude, like just try to be proactive, try to get them to get going, like figure it out. And if you have any questions, write them down. And when I'm back from the cruise in the North Atlantic, no service, reach out to me in 7 days." And I remember you sent us an email with to-dos, and it was just like, oh shoot, oh my gosh, like back in the trenches. We'll figure it out as we go. First thing I did was send in the group chat, send a text, "Hey, I'm gonna be here this whole week. Let's get to it." And
It was one of those like that I realized like yes, I lead the team because technically I put it together, but at the same time, people follow you more because you're leading by example. Like you're closer in the trajectory as they are. So if I sell a house or buy a house or do whatever, they're like, well, of course, right? Miguel did it, right? And like, good job, but not in an envious way, but of course, you know, he's been in the
yeah, the
industry longer. It makes
experience,
sense,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then when they see you put an escrow together or they see you do something, they're all like, wait a minute, like he just started it last year. So it makes more sense. It becomes more doable or more achievable if they see you accomplish something. Right?
Which is it's really nice because that week that we were all there, I remember telling him, I was like, "Hey guys, I'm in the same boat as you guys. Like
I don't know what I'm doing.
we're gonna figure this out as we go, but we're gonna figure it out." Yeah. And I know there was just a couple things like in order to make sure I commit to it. It's like first thing is like, okay, I'm gonna read a book this month and I'm gonna finish it this month. That's by law. And I'm gonna start going to the gym because December, worst fitness, worst health I've ever had. Oh, horrible, man. Anything I wanted to eat, I ate, and it was just like I was in the worst shape of my life. I had no good habits, and it was like, okay, starting January, I'm gonna read a book, I'm gonna start going to the gym, I'm gonna take this serious, and this is gonna go hand in hand with real estate. I remember I bought a journal January 4th, and I was like, I'm gonna put everything I need to do on this journal, and I highlight it as we go. And I still have it and fill it out every day. And that day it was like, okay, send us an email of general things to do, call this, call them, contact this, find this, do this. And it was just like, all right, you guys know what you're gonna do, I know what I'm gonna do, we're gonna figure this out. And yeah, it was straight to that. Read the 10 pages, call the clients, make sure everyone's on the right track, and we've had great progress so far.
So that was about a month and a half ago. The results have been incredible. Everybody's on board every day. Everybody's getting small little wins. There have been ups and downs. In our first month back, we had a contract and it fell out again, right? But, you know, last year I kind of did it solo. I had a really good year myself, but I started realizing there's no way to scale. Like I was killing myself doing it, right? I was working, 16 to 18-hour days. I was not, I'm used to traveling a lot and enjoying, my bucket list items and doing that. And last year was just like, it was the most I've ever made in a year, but also the most I've ever worked and the less I've enjoyed like the little things in life, I guess, because I was just so focused. And it's funny because I don't really feel like it was tough because I love what I do and I'm obsessed about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, at a certain point, your body tells you like stop. Like at a certain point, your body's like, bro, just like
Mm-hmm.
sit down, you know? So that's when I realized like, okay, I do need a team. Like it's not just, I can't do it all by myself, right? And we have several people on the team like Maria and Fano that have all of these different skill sets. Fano is used to being in a team environment, right? So he brings the team together and runs the team meetings that used to take me a lot of time to prepare for. Maria is really good at social media and she's doing all those things. Danny, who just joined the team, has a extensive background in multifamily real estate and that kind of stuff. So it's awesome to see everybody using their skills to finally come together. Now, for the audience and everyone who's listening, it's not just my team and it's not just what we do, right? What is some of the things that have been able to make a big difference from the first time you tried this real estate stuff to all the revelations over the past year that we've talked about to now what we're doing today? What is the biggest difference? Because there's the same 24 hours in the day. Why are we getting more results today than we were the first time that we did this a year ago?
That's a great question. So the first time 2 years ago when we did this, we were very focused in on first-time home buyers and just funneling down to finding people who are qualified that want to buy homes. And realistically, it's just we're going against the time and the market. No one can buy. No one can pre-qualify.
Yeah, inflation was through the roof. Interest rates were through the roof. Home prices were through the roof. So somebody just to buy a condo in San Diego had to make like 300 grand a year to get a 1-bedroom condo. We were like, where are these people,
400 square feet, yeah. And so it was just trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. Another thing that I noticed in that time period is we were trying to do the same thing over and over and over again. And we're like, it's bound to stick without making little changes at the time. This time around, we're focused more on investors and putting pieces together. And we're a whole lot more strategic. And I feel like every week we're analyzing what we're doing and what we could be doing better. And individually, we all try different things to see what works. And collectively, we come together and we're like, this is what worked for me this week. And we all jump on it. This is what worked for me this week. And we all jump on it. So it's very, very strategic. And we're putting pieces together. We're the master puzzle makers.
Yeah. And I've talked to a lot of agents and it seems like many times when you join a brokerage, and I was with the brokerage, I still am, right, that I've been with for 6 or 7 years. And new agents come in and come and go, and it's always the same like lessons, right? Host an open house, give out flyers, talk to your friends and family. And that's all everybody knows. And I talk to other agents throughout the industry, but look, 74% of realtors last year didn't sell a single house, right? I went from quitting, our job at the ADU company to having my best year and being the top 1% of realtors nationwide at our firm, right? And the biggest thing I did was not do what everybody was telling me to do. The only difference is I did the complete opposite of what I had done before, right? And I started realizing, look, there's investors out there and there's investment opportunities. Now, if I sell a house, that client who bought the house will most likely never buy another house from me for the next 5 to 10 years. And the biggest change, I think, for me was one of my mentors, Dante, that gave me an opportunity to list a property of his. And when I gave the client the keys, it was an investor who bought it. He said, hey, I want to buy this entire block. And that most clients take a picture with the TV that I give them. And then I'll talk to them next Christmas, right? But this client was like, I want to buy the entire block. This was about a year ago. And then said, okay. So I started literally talking to every neighbor on that block and we got another one, right? And then a month later, we got another one. And then a month later, we got another one. And that same investor had bought 4 or 5 houses back to back months. I was like, holy smokes. Like, I have one client that made up 50% of all my production this year. Like, that is insane. And then we started realizing there's more people like this out there, right? They're not the only ones. And everybody's looking for something different. And then the biggest change was once we figured out how to leverage and build relationships with other realtors, because that's how we expand our business. It's not like being selfless is like the biggest reason why we've scaled our business, because we're not out there trying to only have our deals and we make 4, 5, or 6% on every deal. It's like, hey, we'll take 1, 2% on a deal, but move numbers, move volume. And I think that was the biggest change that you realized as well, is like, now we're very targeted. An investor has all cash. I want $3 million. I want a sixplex in this specific zip code. Well, guess what? My job is to find them a sixplex in that zip code at a certain cap rate under $3 million. And if I do, we make a good commission on that, right?
Now, my question to you is, when you had that epiphany of the investors and dang, this works, how did it feel in that exact moment saying, dang, I can change the game?
I think it actually didn't it was a lot of different things that came together that worked in different transactions, right? I had one client that sold his investment property with me. It was a small condo, and he wanted to buy his primary residence for his own house. Now his budget was somewhere around like $2 million, right? So obviously the higher in price point you go, the less homes there are available. And obviously it was like for his family, so he's being a lot more picky about that property than he was about the investment properties, right? Mm-hmm. So we toured homes and homes and homes, and it was probably like 50 or 60 houses, right? And then I started seeing Ricky Carruth, how he would like dial expired listings. And what he would do is he'd call somebody, hey, you couldn't sell your house. Like, why? What happened? And he would try to go after the listing, right? Which is great. But most people, what I started realizing is the listing will expire and cancel, and then they'll relist with the same exact agent that couldn't sell it the first time. So I'm going to fight an uphill battle doing that, right? So basically, that's where these relationships come in, is like, hey, I'm not going to try to cut the agent out of it. Let's work together, right? So with that client, what we did is we pulled a list of every property that did not sell that fit his criteria. And then I started calling every realtor and saying, hey, I have a client that's interested in your property. I saw you couldn't sell it. Would they still be open to an offer? They get all excited because they're going to get their commission, and they sell the deal for me, right? Mm-hmm. Now, when I had an investor that wanted to buy in a certain area, I used the same strategy, and that's how it started working. And then from there, we started realizing all these other things, right? And it started going like, they said, hey, I want that house. And I'm like, shoot, well, that house is not an expired listing. It's not a canceled listing. So how do we find the person's phone number? How do we talk to them? How do we negotiate? How do we build the scripts? So it wasn't a one revelation, I think. Mm-hmm. I think it was a culmination of many different things that worked that we pieced together into our own unique process.
Now, you said something very interesting that a lot of people in our industry, especially in investing too, we're licensed agents that work with investors. And I believe in the beginning, we were taking it as we're licensed agents. Mm-hmm. Throughout the process, you even mentioned, is you made the switch from thinking like a real estate agent to thinking like an investor.
Absolutely, yeah.
How did that change the way you perceived everything and how you went about it?
Yeah, that completely changed because, well, once we're realtors looking for properties for investors, I started seeing like they would turn down a lot of deals that I would bring them, right? Mm-hmm. And I started asking questions like, okay, why does this deal not work, right? Like not just, oh, okay, I'll go look for the next one. Can you please sit down and explain why this doesn't work? Well, the rental comps in this area are not as good, or hey, the zoning is not as great, or hey, we can only build 4 units and we need to build 5 to be able to sell it as a commercial deal. And I started getting in their minds, right? So every investor that we're working with, whether it's the main developers that make up most of our business, or the other developers that have trickled in, whether it's a multifamily investor, I seek first to understand their investment strategy first.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I bring them a deal, I want to pitch them based on their investment strategy. It's like, hey, you told me this and this and this criteria, and guess what? It meets all of these at a perfect price. I've gotten to the point where I underwrite the entire deal before I send it to them, right? So I already tell them how much they're going to make, how long it's going to take, where they can get the debt, all that stuff. That is how we separate ourselves, right? It's not just sending random addresses to people. It's like we really understand, and we've actually gotten way less calls done and way more production, right? And part of that reason is we really are like niching down and specializing and getting better at it. And we can look at a deal and say, pass, 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 pass. Boom, this is a good one. Let's lock it up. And more often than not, we're pretty accurate on what the investors are looking for.
Now, you explained the face of the coin in regards to investors. How has that benefited us speaking to realtors and acquiring more deals?
Yeah, absolutely. It all comes down to education, right? And this is something that I've seen with my my dad's business is he focuses on educating first. And this is a long process. Like, it's not your fastest way to get a deal, right? But it is, I think, one of the most sustainable ways to build a business, right? So we're educating other realtors, we're educating other clients. I believe that everything is abundant. Like you've seen, I'm not out there like fighting for a commission check or trying to make the most on every deal. Now, I understand a lot of realtors only sell one or two houses a year and they have to make as much as they can on that one deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you focus more on like learning and the relationship over the profit, it makes such a big difference, right? I've lost money on at least 2 or 3 deals a year. I lose money, right? Like I basically either give up the entire commission or I give such a huge credit or, you know, I end up helping the family with other stuff later, right? But at the end of the day, I don't think there's anyone who's done business with me that can say like, I didn't do my best to take care of them, right? So that's one of the things that even some things that are out of my control, people can still like the situation goes completely south, but they can still say I did my best and put my interests aside to help them out. Right?
Mm.
And I think that's what a lot of the realtors that we work with are realizing. Like they'll bring us a deal. Like there was a deal that recently got brought to us, and my investor really wanted it. And I said, and there was no room for me to be an agent on the deal, right? So I said, you know what? You go ahead and represent my client. Like you go ahead and go through the transaction and just toss me a referral fee after. You think that agent's not going to bring me deals in the future? Like
Of course, yeah.
they're going to bring me deals all the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? So at the end of the day, then it keeps that investor happy. That investor's going to buy another house from me next month. Like it's not, you know, I'm always looking at, it's always going to come back, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one of the biggest things. But yeah, to not go too much into detail about, you know, the entire process and everything else, there are a lot of realtors that may be struggling right now or people that want to take that leap that can learn from your story. What are 3 things, you know, pretty much to wrap up that you can say if someone was starting out, what would be the advice, you know, you just being a couple months back into the industry and you've gone through this journey of an uphill and then a downhill and then back on the horse. What is one piece of advice for mindset, one piece of advice from strategy, and one piece of advice just for life in general that you would give to somebody your age?
That's a good question.
So let's start off with the mindset one.
Okay, mindset, always measure backwards. So I read a book last month. It was called The Gap and the Gain. And it's like the way it goes is that typically everyone's in the gap because they're always comparing themselves to this ideal. So, okay, I want to become the top 1% realtor in America and make $1 million. And then I compare myself where I am right now. And it's like, okay, I'm never going to reach it. Well, what you should do is you should measure backwards like I did. I was in construction. What was it? 2 months ago? And look at like, I've made a lot of progress, even though it's 1% incremental progress. It's still progress to be made.
Now you're on a podcast giving advice.
Crazy how life works, huh? So yeah, it's like rather than comparing myself to other people, I compare myself to my past self. And if as long as I'm doing better, then what I was doing 3 months ago, 2 months ago, a week ago, I'm winning. And I know I'm going to get closer, as progress typically is an exponential growth rather than an incremental. So that's one piece of advice. Another one was, you said strategy.
Yeah.
Learn everything. Never stop learning. That is the key to this game. If you don't know it, it's okay. Not everyone knows everything about what they're doing. And this doesn't apply to just real estate. This is in regards to whatever you want to do in life. I'm always trying to learn something new every single day. Even if there's something I can't learn, it's like, okay, read something, watch a new podcast, think of something different. Like, always, always, always train your mind to never, never, ever stop learning, because that is key. That's helped me so much. It's helped me develop different strategies on how to pull certain deals, or just different ways of thinking. Yeah, always learn, always learn.
Awesome. And then one last thing for like general life advice that you'd give to somebody. Like there's a lot of people that are just at your age, just graduating college and have no job lined up, right?
Mm-hmm.
That are, just starting out in their industry, and maybe they see all these people being successful. Maybe they're taking, a corporate job or a 9-to-5 job, and they like what they do, but there's not a lot of room for growth. Like, what would you give just for someone who's in their early 20s that is looking for, an opportunity for their next chance at life?
So when I look back at myself when I just graduated college, I had technically nothing lined up in regards to, I didn't really do internships. I didn't do anything. It was just like, I kind of just went about it as an ice cream man, and I was like, okay, I guess it's gonna work out. And I remember stressing out in senior year because I'm like, we're getting close to reality here. We gotta do something. So one thing is, whatever you want to do, chase it, give it your 100%. You won't lose. Your future self will thank you. And another thing is, don't be scared to make mistakes. Don't be scared to not know. And I feel like that's a huge thing, because people are so scared. Like when I was in construction.
Well, I'll just give you a perfect example of that. And you know this. I always do. I'm a very big action taker.
Mm-hmm.
I never wait for perfection, right? This podcast is a perfect example of that, right? I did not have the name for this podcast 5 minutes before we started.
Yeah,
I said, I'm thinking of this. What do you think? Okay, cool. Let's run with it, right? I don't have the best, I don't have my own studio or anything, right? I'm borrowing a friend's studio. Like, at the end of the day, it's like, dude, just start, because I've been waiting for months to do this, and everybody's been telling me, like, you're great at it, like you're very good at articulating your ideas, like, just get out there and do it, right? And I'm like, yeah, but I was waiting for the perfect mic, for the perfect setup, for the perfect this. And it was like 2 days ago that my dad was like, listen to my interview with somebody else, and he was like, why are you not the one interviewing? Like, go out there and do your own thing. And he's like, can you promise me you will do it? So I was on Wednesday. Today is Friday, and the podcast has already started.
We'll text him right now. But yeah, another example is in construction, you change the whole way of seeing things, right? You see, I know with us, we're very we like to do. We're not scared of the risk. We're very, very direct in regards to, hey, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, we fail and we learn from it.
Yeah.
In construction, there's a lot of people, a lot of 18-year-olds, a lot of young people, even older people that just are scared. And it's like, they don't want to do more for themselves. They're scared of what if it doesn't work out. They're scared of what happens. Like, this is a secure job. I can do this for the rest of my life. But it's like, is this the life you want to be living? Do you really want to be waking up?
And some people do,
Some people do. Some people do.
It's a bigger, like, mental challenge to go out and try to do your own thing. But what I think I've told you, and we've had, even in the past couple months, things are going better, but we have had some nights where I'm stressed out, you're stressed out. And I've told you, I'm like, look, if this doesn't work out, you can always go back to the same job you had, right?
True,
but if you stayed over there, you would have never had the opportunity to grow, right?
And it's that same thing that I heard time and time again. These people were just telling me, I want to do this. I want to go and do this. And I would always tell them, why don't you? Just do it. No, man. But I got to pay my car next week. And it's okay. Yeah. You know what? People do have responsibilities. They got families and everything like that, but it's fear what drives them.
Yeah.
Because when you're motivated, if anything, the fear and the motivation is what drives me to become better. It's like, I don't want to be conformist. I have big dreams. I want to accomplish this. I know you have big dreams too, and that's why we have so much synergy in that aspect. But yeah, just don't let fear stop you from doing what you do, because I saw the other side of the coin in regards to like, hey, a 9 to 5, and a lot of people are holding themselves back just because they're scared of, okay, commission only. We don't know when our next paycheck is going to come in. But I mean, that's the fun of it.
Yeah. And so those were like 3 really good pieces of advice. I think just one last thing to finish off. So one of the things that has been a big driver for me and my family is always being able to like leave a legacy, right? Um, for my dad and my mom, it has been, helping cancer patients in Mexico. That has nothing to do with, their careers, but they want to give back. For me, it's been a lot of environmental stuff when I was younger, and now I'm spending a lot of time mentoring and coaching other young kids to be able to take that leap and start. And I've had several interns that have worked for me that are now doing some amazing things, right? So that, like, being able to help the youth understand, like, hey, you have one life, go for it, and here are some actionable steps you can take. That's kind of me leaving my legacy. And as we came up with this name, the name of the podcast is Change the World. And the reason for that is when I was younger, I was doing a lot of motivational speaking. So TED Talks and speaking to crowds of up to 10,000 people. And obviously I was like 12, 13 years old. So I'd get nervous, right? And the one thing my dad would always tell me backstage would be like, go out there and change the world. Like, go out there and change the world. So it's more of like a hoorah, like a hype, message. And anytime either I'm going to do something that's scary or my dad is, we usually text each other CTW, right? Change the world. So that's a legacy that we have. My question to you is, what is it may not be something that you've thought about. What is a legacy that you want to leave aside from being successful and making all this money and building a successful business? Let's say tomorrow you were gone, right? Kind of dark, but what what would you want people to remember you for 5 years, 10 years from now, and being like, hey, you know what? Describe Antonio in one word. What would you want people to think of?
That's a great question. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you got me at a loss for words. I did not think about that, but
It might be something to think about, right?
yeah,
Because we're
definitely.
building all this stuff together. What's it all for? Like, what's the why behind all of it? That's a very, it's something new to me too, right? And especially thinking as we're younger, it's a very mature way to think, I think, in regards to what is the whole reason behind this,
My answer to that question, because I believe in people. I think people can do great things in this world, but sorry. I believe people can do great things in this world. If anything, I would want people to see me and be like, if he can do it, I can do it too. And just go for it. Like, I'm not the smartest in the room. I'm not the most athletic. I'm not the best at sales, but we're piecing it together and we're making it happen. So if I can do it, I want everyone to know they could do it too. They really can. They just got to believe in themselves. If it's something they love, do what you love. And if I were to die tomorrow and someone or people were to remember me for what I was about, my entity, it's that I did what I loved. At the end of the day, I did what I loved and I died for it.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining the first episode of the Change the World podcast. We have a ton of guests already lined up to be coming between Wednesday and today. I sent out probably like 50 invites.
From Wednesday to now, huh?
Yeah. So we'll have one of these episodes coming out at least once every 2 weeks or once every month. But yeah, stay tuned. And if you guys know anybody who's young and driven and leaving a legacy and impacting their community, whether in real estate or outside of real estate, make sure to connect us. And thank you guys again for all your support.
Thank you guys. Bye bye.